Hi everybody, welcome into my step-by-step painting tutorial. My name is Erin, known as erinbunpaints here on YouTube. I'm also live streaming on Twitch right now, so I can live stream these step-by-step tutorials for people who want to paint along with me live, or watching on YouTube as you are now. This is the painting we're making today. It's an unnamed painting. I always forget to say this actually, I'll say it this time. I always don't name my paintings for tutorials, and you're more than welcome to give me suggestions on what to name it. I guess it'll be named by the time this YouTube tutorial is up. I'm sure you'll see the name in the title, but for now, it is Unnamed Moon Painting. I thought it would be a really cool one to teach to everybody. I think it's kind of a cool perspective, lots of neat colors in there, lots of different textures and blending techniques. So that's what I'll be teaching you today, step by step. If you've never painted along with me before, here's how it's going to work. I'm actually going to switch you over to here, where you can see both my original painting and the digital image over here. The idea is that the digital image is going to stay the entire time, so at least you have like a little reference image to look at if you'd like to. And over here, I'm actually going to paint along with you step by step, so that way you can see my canvas transform right along with you. You can see as I apply color, how I do it. I'm going to talk you through the whole thing as well, so if you want to just listen along, you can do that too. Generally these take about 2-ish hours. Sometimes I go a little over, a little under. I'm sure you can see the length of the video to determine how long this is going to take, but I always shoot for around 2 hours, so I would budget about 2 if you're looking to paint along with me today in real time. And then I'll go over some supplies with you as well, just in case maybe you're looking to figure out what I have with me today. But I always keep it the same with every tutorial, so if you've painted along with me before, it's probably going to be the exact same stuff. First of all, I have a 16 by 20 canvas. You can always use a different kind of canvas, a different size of canvas, a whole different, painting surface if you'd like. I use 16 by 20s pretty exclusively just because that's what I'm used to. But again, this image can be transformed pretty easily into a square, into a landscape orientation. You can just kind of move the moon around wherever you like. So yeah, feel free to paint on whatever you like today, but I'll be using a 16 by 20. In terms of paintbrushes, I have 3 paintbrushes with me. Again, I always keep them the same. I have a large flat brush, I have a medium round brush, and I'm going to be honest, I can't find my usual small round brush, but it looks something like this. Just any small brush with a slightly rounded tip so you can do some little details. Honestly, in this moon painting, there's not a whole lot of that other than the tiny stars that we add. So I would just make sure you mostly have a couple different sizes, a couple different shapes of brush. So I have, again, a flat one, a round one, just so I can have different brush strokes going on. Other materials I have a cup of paint water, I have a paper towel close by, I'm also wearing a shirt that I don't mind getting paint on. I have trusty Bob Ross with me today. And that's pretty much all you need. Again, I try and keep supplies very basic. Oh, and then paint colors, excuse me, we need paint. I always use 5 different paint colors. I keep it, again, relatively simple so you can join in with as little paint colors as you have. I use white paint, black paint, red, yellow, and then blue. The blue specifically is phthalo blue. If you have options between a few blues, I like that bright phthalo blue for my blue paint. And that concludes the supplies. Again, I try and keep it pretty simple so that you can hopefully use what you have at home or pick up whatever you need just at the dollar store or any kind of cheap shop, I guess, so that you're not investing too much in painting along if it's your first time. Other things about the tutorial, not a whole lot. I feel like I went through time, I went through supplies. Yeah, I guess we'll just get right into it. That's my introduction. Here we go. Okay. Okay, let's begin painting. We've done our cheers, we're good to go. So the chat was kind enough to remind me, they're not always bad, sometimes they remind me of good things. They reminded me to let you all know here on YouTube that this painting is great to do as like a partner painting. So if you're looking to maybe paint this with somebody special or just a friend or a roommate perhaps, a great idea would be for one of you to do one side of the moon, the other one can do the other side of the moon. You can put them together so it's like a bigger span of art across the wall. Even if you're by yourself, you can just paint 2 different moons or 2 of the same moon, put them together. I think that's a great idea as well. So thank you, chat, for reminding me. You're all so kind and lovely and beautiful beings. So yeah, just throwing that out there right at the start of the toot, just in case you want to maybe think about that. as a nice little art project. Try out one half, do another half, get a friend to do a half, do a bunch of them, you know? So to start the actual painting, I'm going to start by kind of carving out our moon shape. Again, I'm using a 16 by 20 canvas, so you'll notice that my moon goes a little past halfway, because think about it, it's going 20 inches up. So if it were a full moon, it wants to go 20 inches across, so it's going to be going further than halfway across this canvas, which is, again, shorter lengthwise than it is height-wise. I'm going to use my large flat brush to begin here. And on my palette, I'm going to mix together just lots of white and a tiny bit of black. I'm going to use essentially a light gray just to do some carving out of this spherical shape. When do we get a T emoji? That's been there. That's been an OG emoji, Jamie. That was one of the first ones I added to signify paintbrushes going into the water accidentally. RIP to the many glasses of water and teas and whatever else. I guess tea, right? So relatively simple. All I'm doing here, I'm choosing to use, I guess, the thin edge of the brush, so you can see I'm using it horizontally and kind of curving as I curve with the moon. So I'm starting right up close to the corner here, not quite the very corner. I want to leave maybe a tiny gap just so I see the night sky behind. I'm going to come down, just doing a nice big curve. Something I'm kind of aiming for, just as I'm looking with my eyes here, I'm kind of looking for about the halfway point down the canvas, so not across the canvas. Again, we're not really worried about the center point across, but down. I would say half is about here, you know, halfway down. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to meet the halfway point with this curve. Once I hit the halfway point, I know I need to start curving in again. I can't be continuing to curve out if I'm below the halfway point. So once I hit halfway, I'm going to kind of slowly start to curve inwards again. And once again, try and meet up with around that bottom corner. I'm ending off just a little above that bottom corner. And the great thing about this part is you can try again. You can see my curve kind of, I do that a lot, don't I? I kind of flattened out the bottom part of the curve. So if you don't like it, just try again. Point out what's looking a little off or funny to you, and then just try again with a second or third or fourth stroke until you've got somewhat of a half circle. And again, I would keep that halfway point in mind because it does help with keeping things nice and even if we're looking for that nice exact half circle shape. There we go. Are you really playing this toot on a Friday? Fresh weekend? Yeah, apparently. Hey, Augustin. Yeah, I plan to still do them here and there. I know I said recently, both in a video and probably in a few live streams, that I don't do toots as much anymore. And I don't, and I just wanted to, like, make that clear because I was worried that some people were expecting those from me all the time. And yeah, for those on YouTube, if you're listening, I'm sure maybe you saw I posted more of a traditional just talking to the camera video recently. That's something I talked about. I've been doing these free tutorials for a long time, 3 years in fact, 3+ years at this point. And it's tough. It's tough to come up with new designs and to schedule these in and to make so much time for them considering they are a free service that I provide and offer. Yeah, so I just wanted to make clear that I'm reducing them a little bit. I don't plan to ever stop them, at least for now. But they're just going to continue to be fewer and further between. So this one today is, for example, the last one of the year. I don't really have one planned yet for next year, but I'm sure I will eventually. Yeah. Yeah, one of the first ones for sure. To the moon and back. That's cute. Half and curve. You could, yeah, Jamie. You could even, yeah, the 1/2 and the 1/2 if that's what you mean. I think that's a good idea. Try different mediums. The moon is so pretty. Thanks, Luke. Welcome in. Did you figure out where on Earth the photo was taken based on the patterns? I thought you were doing that at one point. I forget if it was this moon or another moon. All right, so relatively simple first step. I wanted to give obviously a little extra time. I'm chatting with chat, but also to allow you to kind of shape out your half circle there. Once the half circle is done, I'm going to go right into the night sky just to get that nice dark background on so we can really start to see our shape. Adding the night sky will also allow us to reshape our moon a little bit. So maybe if you made it a little too big or you need to cut anywhere a little off, like I think up here is a little round for my liking. I think I want to push it in a bit just to match the bottom. Then we'll be able to use that black paint to shape up our sketch. So I'm going to keep using the same brush. This is the large flat brush again here. And I said black, but we're actually going to start with a very, very dark gray. I want to create a little bit of a glow right by the moon's edge, and then we're going to move into black paint for the very, very dark night sky. So I have my large flat brush. I'm mixing together black with just a little bit of white. So it's like a darker gray, I would say. Not super light. Medium to dark, let's say. But in the mixture, I am using mostly black with a smaller amount of white. That's what it's looking like when I put it on. If you'd like more of a, even more of a glow, just keep adding some white to it. You can use even an even lighter gray if you'd like. And then very simply, I'm just going to, as you can see here, I'm kind of just going right around my sketch. There's no harm in overlapping the sketch if you'd like to start overlapping it. Again, this is more just deciding where the empty space of the moon will be. So use this color however you like to shape out the negative space of the moon. So you can see once again, I am creating a little bit of this gap down here. Oops, I cut in a little bit there. Just trying to create a nice smooth edge. And this isn't even our last chance to shape our moon. If we really wanted, we could, when we start filling in the moon, once again, kind of redefine that outside edge. So if you have a little boo-boo like I did where I went a little too far in, we still have one more opportunity to fix that. So no need to panic. And I mean, there's endless opportunities with acrylic paint. I'm just talking in the tutorial. There will be another opportunity. But yeah, acrylic paint's great for just allowing things to dry and then going over top of them as many times as you like to really perfect as much as you like. But sometimes it's also nice to just ignore some of the imperfections and see how it looks without concentrating too much on all the little things. So a nice thick band. I would say this is a thick band of gray. I'm kind of using the whole width of my brush and just smoothing it all out as I go. You started, Luke? Turned out to be difficult? No worries. I may have even flipped this image if I can be honest. I forget if I either flipped it vertically or horizontally, just to get the right side and everything. Hey, Todd! Everyone was already making the joke. I saw some people making some TOS jokes today, so we're keeping it too friendly today. Very true, Todd. Very true, yes. Anyway, the category still isn't fixed, I see. I still see some questionable content, but that's okay. It'll come with time. Alright, I'm going to move a little quickly into the next step because I want this to stay a little wet for blending. I'm now taking my large flat brush. I am dipping it in the water a little bit as I mix an even darker gray. I'm still not going full black. I'm just going to add a little black into my current gray to make it even darker. So I would call this now a dark gray. I know this looks pretty dark already, but here's what it's comparing to, and that's still not straight black. That's black with just a tiny bit of white now. Here's what I'm doing with it. I'm just using my large flat brush. I'm brushing along the outside edge of the gray that we just added. So you can see I'm just quickly slopping it on. Some people blend while they do this, and that's totally fine. No rule against that. I personally just like applying the paint first so I have it all on the canvas. And then I can concentrate on blending it. Just gonna pop this up. So another thick band, you know, again, width-wise, just about the width of my brush, maybe a little more, you can see. And then once I have both colors on the canvas, you just wipe off your brush. There's no extra paint on there. I see the glare is kind of affecting. Let me try and, there we go. It's a little better, isn't it? Yep. All right, I'm going to use the full width of the brush. So this is no extra paint on the brush. I've just wiped off whatever was remaining on there. And now I'm going to brush in between, and you can see what happens is my brush picks up a little bit of both of those colors and just softly blends them together so there's no more harsh edge. It looks more like they're fading into each other. And I'm just doing nice big bold strokes, kind of following the shape of the moon, so that nice curve, until that harsh line disappears. I can go maybe a little more on that. Interesting what the camera picks up versus what I see. If you find they're not blending, just try pressing a little harder. I find sometimes people go in with quite a light hand for blending, which is nice to try first. But sometimes to really like get the paint stuck on your brush and moving around, you gotta press a little harder. So try that if it's not working for you. And then another thing you could try if you find the blending isn't working is adding just a little more paint to the canvas or even just to your brush. Sometimes I recommend adding the lighter color directly to your brush so you can kind of blend it into the darker color. Or you can just add a little bit of each color to the canvas and then try again with that same technique, just brushing in between with no extra paint on your brush. Anyway, yeah, anything smooth and kind of glowy looking is what we're looking for. And again, I'll point out, I wouldn't say this is a very dramatic glow. Mine is pretty tame, pretty chill. If you want it more dramatic, you could be using a lighter gray right around that edge to really get a bright glow going. Get there first, then yeah, exactly. I think so. That's how I like to do it, because or else I find sometimes I'll go in with my paint, I'll apply a little, and then I'll spend time blending. Two things will happen. A, this part of the painting now dries, and then I have to reapply. And B, sometimes I run out of paint as I'm doing, and then I'm stuck remixing. I'd rather mix all the paint first, know that I have enough, and then just play with the blending. It's kind of like concentrating on one step at a time rather than going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Hey, Gray! I can't wait to paint. Oh no! When you don't have a migraine. No! Curses to the migraine, I'm sorry. Were you planning on painting along tonight live? Or just another time? Glad you're here though. I hope the migraine ends up going away. Oh my goodness. It's been a season of migraines for you and many others, I think. No! Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. Well, you and a few others now are waiting for YouTube, so I'll try and prioritize that amongst the few other things I have to do in the next week. Okay, we've got our dark gray on along with our medium gray. Gray in the chat, you're here. Now we're going to do our darkest, I guess not darkest gray, we're just using black. That's the answer here. We've already done the darkest gray we can. So now I'm just using the same paintbrush. I didn't even wash it off because we are getting darker with our paint colors, so it's not as necessary to be washing the brush off. Just grabbing black paint now, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm first going to start by adding like a band of black, even though we will be putting black everywhere remaining in the background here. I'm going to start just by doing our band of black as described so that we have enough paint on the canvas while things are still wet. And then we can concentrate on blending. A little white snuck in there. I'm just trying to blend it out. No, no, no. We want the darkness now. Please, please. Okay. And then same technique. I'm just not washing. I'm just wiping my brush off. You could wash it off if you want. It's just not as necessary in my opinion. I think it's actually nice to have a tiny bit of paint remaining just to, that's something in my paint there. Get that off. Yeah, sometimes it is nice to have a little paint on your brush because, like I said, it keeps the paint a little fresher. It's kind of like you're adding a little extra fresh paint to allow for some nicer wet-on-wet blending. So yeah, same thing, just taking that brush, doing those nice big curves all the way around the moon. And I'm trying to stay away from the glow at this point. I'm only trying to go where that or dark gray rather is and the black paint. I'm not trying to blend all the way in. If I start going closer to the moon, I might start removing that nice kind of glowy medium gray that we had to begin with. Yeah, exactly, Charlene. A lot of people have colds and COVID right now. I am aware. I went and got boosted on Monday so that I'm hopefully being extra safe for the holidays. Never thought to push harder on the... Yeah, I just find sometimes because the paint gets kind of sticky sometimes, Jamie. So pressing hard, it just allows the bristles to kind of pull at the paint a little more. Just gives it a little extra encouragement, you know? I was blaming the lack of blending on temperature. That might be it too. I feel like it could be a lot of factors. I mean, theoretically, if maybe it was too hot in your apartment, maybe you wouldn't need to add more pressure. But yeah, the pressure's kind of solution to the paint just drying and getting sticky for sure. Oh, I'm sorry, Marion. People were complaining that for whatever reason today they didn't get emails when I went live, so I'm very sorry. If you are ready to paint along, I can catch you up very easily. But otherwise, this will be on YouTube soon, I'm sure. But happy you're here, Marion. Welcome in. Grace says today was one of the worst. I actually messaged my boss and said nope to working today. Man, after the meeting last night too, huh? And for me to call in sick, it's a blemish on my perfect record. No. Listen, we all can't be perfect. We all get sick. I'm glad you chose to take the day. Now you have the weekend too, right? It's better than pushing through and then maybe being off for multiple days, right? So once the blending's done, you can see I'm just grabbing black paint and just slopping it on. There's no fancy techniques here. I'm just filling up the rest of our canvas to the left of the moon. So any of that nice background. Ooh, careful. I was just teetering on the edge of my easel there. I should have put it back down. Oh, and I haven't said the, wow, mandatory reminder. Your edges! Don't forget your canvas edges! If you're using a canvas like me, of course, maybe you're using a piece of paper that doesn't really have edges, that's okay. If you have edges, wrap that paint around the edges. It's not mandatory, but it's become a thing that I always say, so I always try and remember to remind. And it's because it just cleans up the painting. That's really the only thing it's doing. It's covering up those blank white edges. I think every piece of the canvas should be painted, you know? Even if you're only looking forward, maybe you see a little glimpse of the sides, and it's just nice to see the design carry over onto the edges. I think it cleans it up, makes it look a little more professional. And again, I choose to use the colors that I have on the canvas already and move them around. But sometimes people will choose, you know, one solid color to do the edges, like black paint, for example. That's usually a pretty clean choice. But I just try not to leave them blank. And again, it's easier to do it while you're painting rather than doing what I sometimes do when I forget to paint the edges. I have to make an hour or two out of going through some of my paintings and like color matching the edges, and that's tough sometimes. Definitely more efficient to do it during. I always welcome the darkness. I got it, but it did not sound. Oh no! Okay, okay. At least they're kind of working, Marion. I'm sorry it didn't work for you fully, but at least they're not broken. Oh yeah, Marion, for sure. Marion said, will this be available for review? Yes, both here on Twitch, if you know how to access my VODs on Twitch, which is pretty straightforward. Oh, ad breaks. We're gonna snooze that. Yeah, the video will be available. I think it's available now as I'm airing it. And then as usual, I'll stick it on YouTube within the next week or so. Absolutely. Forever and always. I know, yeah, Cray, if you need to step away from the screen, please do. Don't you worry. I can even put a timer on for the toot blurb if we need to. Thank you, though. We had to get the edges command, though. That hadn't been used yet. I'm shocked. Usually I'm reminded. Okay, I'm just going to leave this for a quick minute or two, just in case anyone's catching up on that blending of the background. Background is pretty straightforward, though. That's going to be pretty much it until it dries, and then we can put some stars all along the dark background. We're going to be concentrating more on the moon part for the rest of the toot now. La 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 la. This would be a good opportunity too, if you're someone who likes to change your paint water. I would say now is the time to do it. Just looking at my paint water, it's already very, very, very gross. And that's because we're using all these dark colors, right? All the grays, all the blacks and stuff. This is going to be probably the dirtiest the paint water gets. So if you want some clean paint water, I would change it right now, because we'll be going into some moon colors next, which involves some kind of like rusty oranges, some blues. We'll be using some very, very light grays. I personally just use the same paint water the whole time. I just make sure to kind of really use my paper towel from now on. When I wash off my brush, I really tap the dirty water out of my brush so that when I'm mixing a color, that dirty paint water isn't affecting the color mixing. Oh yeah, that's true, Gray. I'm sure it's not too big of an issue, but yeah, I'm sure you know. If you gotta step away, even without saying BRB, please do that. Oh, I found my small brush. It's right over here. It's because I was washing with it, I think. Here's my teeny brush. Okay. My pile of brushes that I've been using for like personal paintings is growing. I feel like forever I was so used to using the 3 that I introduced at the start of the tooth that I just only used those exclusively for any paintings I was doing. But now I'm, my goodness, experimenting with other shapes of brush, other sizes of brush. Look, I got this small square one. Small flat. Not used to any small flat brushes. Anyway. Don't feel limited to the 3 brushes that I introduce. I always just recommend those as like a starter pack. But if you find other ones that you like, please feel free to use those. No worries, Todd. Enjoy your food. Don't feel obligated. I don't get migraines, but I get headaches a lot and screens. Yeah, that's what I figured. I didn't turn off the ads. You think I should turn them off? I snoozed them. Is that what you mean? I thought you meant like turn them off for the whole thing. Yeah, I just hit a snooze. I think I had 3 snoozes, so I'm gonna snooze maybe once or twice more, and hopefully we can have an ad break like in 10 minutes or something. Closer to halfway. Although now would have been a good time too, dang it. Now it's blurred out. This ad management thing is crazy. Dang. Yeah, I have a snooze option, but not run. Anyway, that's fine. I'm not sure if ads will really affect anybody. Most people in here, I think, if they're painting, I'm assuming they're subscribed. Destroy the button? The ad button? I'm enjoying this Friday and this tutorial tonight sponsored by Bourbon. Oh, how fun. Bourbon by fire. It's a boot. Oh no! But wait, some of the things are still. I need to catch up on what is still allowed. That's the thing. I caught up on what was rolled back, but there's still things that are very much allowed that they changed. You know, maybe mooning chat is still allowed. I don't know. Ah, another snooze. Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll run ads now. Which it did anyway. I think. Run an ad break to do. Oh, they're on. I see. Well, I can't run them now. Apologies to YouTube. I'm trying to manage Twitch ads at the same time here. Now it won't let me run them. Yeah. I'd like to just run them now instead of waiting for these 3 minutes to end. Goodness me. I don't want to wait 6 minutes, that's the problem. I'll just snooze them for now, Gray. And then I'll snooze one more time. Okay. Alright, yeah, excuse me, YouTube. There's new things that I'm dealing with on Twitch ad-wise to make sure nobody gets caught up in ads while I'm teaching a step, so I'm just trying to manage that here. Yeah, no more. I think I'll hit the snooze button again, Gray, so next time we see it, I'll just one more time. Alright, so let's go ahead with the next step, and again, I might have to take a quick 3-minute break for whenever those ads pop up, but for now we're good. All right, so what we're going to do, as I was describing earlier, I kind of chose two main colors for my moon here. You can see again in the original. I would say the main colors are kind of like a rusty orange color, and then like a navy blue color, and then they're different shades of each. So I have some darker, rusty oranges, some lighter rusty oranges. You can see how they all kind of blend around the moon. You can feel free to change up those colors if you want. I think there's lots of cool color combos you could use for the moon. Gray is obviously one that would be very similar to the actual moon you see in the sky. But as we know, sometimes that moon changes colors. We get some bright oranges, we get more like a blue moon. So that's why I went with oranges and blues personally. But yeah, some purples could be thrown in there, maybe even some pinks. Go crazy if you want. Use the techniques that I teach you and just incorporate some different colors to see how they look. But mainly what I want to begin by doing is doing a nice big base layer of a nice very, very, very light gray. And I choose a light gray because if you see in the original here, we have like this white band all the way around the edge, and that really helps with kind of the glow effect. So for the base of the moon, I want to make sure I'm doing something just slightly darker than white. So I'm going to choose more of a light gray for mine. So I'm going to take my large flat brush, the same brush I've been using this entire time. I'm just going to grab lots of white and dip into the tiniest amount of black, mixing it into the large pile of white to make a very, very light, light, light gray. So again, we're saving white for later. White will be kind of that nice big edge around the moon and for some extra little features later on. So you can see that's my light gray. I'm just going to take large amounts of it. I mixed a lot of it, by the way, so if you haven't mixed a lot, I would mix a nice big pile here. And I'm just going to slop this on any which way. Again, no technique for this step. I'm really just covering quickly. The other thing I am doing while I grab this paint is I'm dipping my brush in my paint water, because that allows the paint to spread a little easier. I don't necessarily need like a very thick layer of this paint. I just want it to cover. And also I want it to act as like a nice wet base because we'll be doing some blending for our next few steps. So adding water will help this stay wet a little longer, and it helps spread easier. So lots of benefits to just keeping your brush a little extra wet, or even using water and kind of mixing it into your pile of paint to thin it out a little bit. But yeah, no real direction of my brush strokes here. I'm just filling up this this moon however I want. The only thing I am being sure to do is you can see I'm leaving a little extra gap around the edge for white. Do-do-do-do. And that'll just make it easier to apply the white so that we're not covering another color, just kind of leaving that blank canvas there. Snooze. I could, Jamie. It involves a lot more editing. It involves more time. Usually I don't have to look through the entire video, but doing that kind of stuff, it means much more time. It's all about gray. Good name. Oh yeah, I don't have the song thing installed. I'm sorry. I can give you the playlist if you'd like. It's just it's all copyright free stuff. If you're actually curious here. There you go. I wouldn't know any of the references, Zyko, unfortunately. Oh, there's that moon. There it is. Yeah, I've never played either Zyko. I've watched a lot of footage from both, but never played myself. Alright, so I was talking about that white kind of glowy edge, and not the glow of the sky, but just kind of the glow on the moon itself. I think I want to do that right now first, just so we can get that done. And then we can go in with all the little colors and try and blend with that nice gray there. So again, we're going to work a little quicker here, just a little bit. just to make sure we're keeping things nice and fresh so that they blend wet on wet. So I'm using the large flat brush. I've washed it off. Make sure to keep it nice and clean after the wash because we're using plain white now. So no mixing required, just plain white. And going around that outside edge, around that gap that we left. So this is kind of, again, not the final chance. If you technically want to go back and fix up this edge later, you totally can, but this will be the last time I'm concentrating on the edge for this tutorial. So I'm going to do my best to just get a nice clean line all the way around, or a clean edge rather. And again, I like to use the thin edge of the brush for that, just so I can be a little more precise. I'm not worried about these thick bristles kind of going every which way. I'm pressing relatively hard so that all the bristles are kind of dragging along with each other. Just going right around the edge. So this is kind of like I described, cleaning up that edge from any messiness that may have occurred when blending those grays around. All the way to the bottom. So just a nice smooth layer of white. Again, that pass I was concentrating on the outside edge. And then once I have that outside edge dealt with, I can kind of blend the inside edge a little bit just by brushing. You can see brushing back and forth in between that very light gray and the white just to fade them into each other a little bit. Doesn't need to be perfect. We're going to be doing lots of other things in the moon, so if you see a little bit of streakiness or some points where it's not blending perfectly, I would not worry about it right now, because we're going to be adding so many other things. You might find that those little spots get covered just naturally as we go along. Good planet, yes, absolutely. That's a moon, for sure. Okay, just leaving a quick minute in case anyone needs to work on that white glowy edge. And then as I said, we'll be getting into the colors next. So throughout this process, we might have to re-add some wetness to the canvas just if we want the wet on wet blending effect. I do have some dry brushing for blending as well a little bit later, so we won't have to keep it wet the entire time we're working with it. But yeah, just keep that in mind for yourself, because I'm sure different environments, we were talking about hot apartments, for example, your paint might dry a little quicker than mine. Maybe it doesn't dry as quick as mine. So I'll remind you when I'm kind of refreshing this background here with some wet light gray paint, but just do that as you will. If you find it's very sticky and dry all of a sudden, just dip your brush into some light gray with some water. Do a quick little one of these, just a quick like wash almost, without getting too messy. We don't want to, you know, mess up everything we've done outside of the moon, but you can see it's really just doing some nice big strokes again with that gray. It's really just to wet the surface so that we can do some nice blending. Don't worry as much about how it looks. That's just an example. Mine was still good to go, but just want to show you again there. Moon fact. Light takes about 1 second to go from moon to Earth. Wow. That is a fun moon fact. Alright, I'm out of snoozes. I'm going to run ads right now. Go, go, go. Oh, it was held. I think Gray got you there. Thank you, Gray. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was saying, why I was saying I have to look up what's now acceptable, because they only rolled back a couple things. But I think those are, Gray. I think that's one of the points they didn't roll back, believe it or not. Oh, and then those doing the toot. For those who may have seen when I announced this toot, I wanted to do a huge moon painting as well. It's actually on the ground behind here. See it right there? I didn't end up completing it. I got a little busy with other things. Good things. I got some commissions kind of last minute for holidays, which is great. So I've been concentrating on those because this was very much a just for fun piece. So I'm sorry I don't have that to show off, because I thought it would be cool to compare the smaller 16 by 20 to like a huge version of the moon. But yeah, if you're interested in seeing that completed, I'm sure I'll do that maybe into the new year. I'm sure I'll post it on some social media. So just if you want to see, it'll be using the same general techniques that I'm teaching today, just kind of showing what you can do when you put it on a bigger scale and all the details you can potentially add when you have more space and more room. So yeah, just keep your eye on my social medias if you want to see that. I'm sure I'll post that up whenever it's done. What happened with them, Todd? Oh, thank you. Yes, all the socials are in Twitch chat for those on YouTube. Everything's erinbunpaints. Just type erinbunpaints wherever you are, and I'm sure you'll find me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, all of them, all the other ones. Pinterest. I'm not shouting at Twitter anymore. I'd like to remove Twitter from all of them because I'm never gonna use it, and I don't want to keep pushing people there. It's kind of a mess right now. Okay, ads are done in a minute. Start up again in 1 more minute. Comes out on my birthday. I don't know what this means, Todd. I'm sorry. Brand new game that they announced. I haven't heard this title. I haven't heard Wellerman at all. Apologies. Oh, a pirate game. Oh, that sounds correct. I could have put that together if I thought a little more about it. Skull and Bones. Still don't know, Todd. Still don't know. That cheese, like that one. I don't know. Cool, it's coming out on your birthday though. Fun moon fact number 0: in the first Apollo mission to have humans on surface of the moon, the astronauts only had to pack food for half the trip. They refilled their food supply with cheese once they got— Wow, that's a fact, huh? They found cheese along the way. Maybe it's the cheese we found along the way that really matters the most. Wow, Luke, that's why it's fact number 0. Don't listen to this fact. No, I haven't, Jamie. Was this a big thing in 2002 that I missed? I have no idea. Okay, seems my ads are over, so I'm going to continue now. So again, wet, light gray surface. We can have fingerprints on the moon now. And I'm going to start with either of the 2 colors. To me, it doesn't really matter which color you start with. I just like to concentrate on one color first, and then I'll move to the second color. So let's choose that kind of like rusty orange looking color. It might take a moment to mix it up, but then we're good to go. I'll show you on my plate so you can see it kind of come to life here. So I'm going to keep using this large flat brush for now. And I called it a rusty orange, so let's start by making just plain orange. I'm mixing together yellow and red to make orange. Welcome back to the volcano plate. For those who haven't seen the volcano plate in a while, it is indeed volcanoing. Volcanoing. It's becoming volcano, especially with this orange we're mixing. Okay, so that's a pretty bright orange. I want it more of like a rusty orange. I'm kind of sneaking a little more red in there first of all, but mainly to rust it up, I'm going to use the tiniest amount of black. Now, you may recognize this color combo, red, yellow, and black, to make brown, and that will work. But instead of using more black to turn it brown, I'm just using a tiny amount of black, so it kind of rusts up the orange. So not turning it into a full brown, just like a rusty... Yeah, you can kind of see it on the edge there, kind of a rusty reddish orange. So again, that was red, yellow, and black. I would say it was about equal amounts red and yellow, maybe sneaking a little extra red in there. And again, the smallest amount of black. If you use too much black, you might find it's turning more into a brown shade. But I mean, rusty red and brown, I feel like they're kind of, you know, similar colors, so you're probably close if you're seeing a brown. If you go brown, that means you just need to re-add your red and yellow a little bit more to turn it a little brighter again. Okay, so to begin, I don't want to go in with this full color. I want to kind of softly add some of the rusty orange color, and then we'll add some bolder versions of it to get kind of those like craters and shadows that we see. So I'm taking the color that's on my brush, I'm wiping it off on my paper towel so there's not a lot on there. It looks like the bristles are like kind of coated, but there's no big blotches of paint left over. And that way, when I stroke it onto the canvas, onto this wet light gray, you can see it's going to kind of come off very softly. So I'm just using a very light touch. I'm using the full width of the brush, and I'm doing this little crisscrossy motion that I seem to really like for a lot of different paintings that I teach. Just doing these quick, soft, back and forth motions. I'll go nice and slow so you can see I kind of go one way and then I flip my brush and go the other way. It's like I'm making little X marks, but I'm just putting them all together. So if you gotta go nice and slow, that's totally fine. Just go like one at a time. I like doing these different strokes so that it doesn't look like I'm doing, you know, all the same way. I like the variety that it creates when I go back and forth. It allows me to make more of a soft texture because I find I'm almost like lifting off of the canvas as I go too. And you can see how nicely that blends out when I do that. When you feel like you've run out of paint, just grab a tiny bit more. I would again wipe off on your paper towel to ensure you don't have too much. And then we're going to keep going. So you can see I'm starting, you know, anywhere I want. I'm going to start near the top here. I'm just kind of following the design I have. So I see that I have some oranges kind of hovering up at the top of the moon. It looks like I bring them kind of a little into the middle here. And then more so down at the bottom. So I'm going to load on a little more and start to work on the bottom here as well. But yeah, if you're not particular about getting the moon exactly the way it is in the sky, you can really add these colors wherever you like. I would just recommend adding them in larger kind of blotches. So you can see I've kind of had a large section added up at the top here. I'm going to add a large section at the bottom. And I would say more importantly, rather than placement, it's more just keeping it soft, you know? We could technically put this everywhere around the moon right now and it would still look great. We don't need to worry about leaving particular light gray spaces the way they are. We can just add this wherever we need to. You probably know it when you hear it. Oh, it's a oh, maybe I do. Okay, maybe I do. I probably just didn't know it was called Wellerman. That makes sense, Jamie. Maybe. I remember the trend of the sea shanties and stuff. I remember that being a thing. Yeah. Fingerprints on the Moon, is that a band or a song? I don't recognize it personally. But it could be. Band name, Fingerprints on the Moon. There's Walk on the Moon. Walk off the Moon? Walk on the Moon? Oh, thanks, Todd. You had to use dark colors first and then red afterwards. Oh, I would say you could go either way personally. And I would say more so just doing the soft colors first. That way you have a nice soft base while the background is still nice and wet, because it would be hard to create the soft base later when you have those big blotches of very dark color. But yeah, as in every other painting, I say there's so many different ways you can do it, I'm sure. This is just the way I found to do it. Hey, Moon! Yeah, sounds good. Hi from work. Hello. Working hard, yes. Look, we're painting you today. It's a moon. Haha, hee hee. Hope you're having a good time at work. As good of a time you can, anyway. It sounds like you've been really enjoying your new job, so that's a positive. So I'm going to point out here, you see how these are getting a little darker? These strokes are getting a little darker and kind of dry. If you can see my brush strokes, how they're starting to separate. They're just not as like smooth and soft. All that means is your background is drying, so I'm just not getting the softness that I once was before. If you like that look, I'm actually going to be doing this on purpose a little later, getting these more textured, dry brush strokes. So if you don't mind looking at them for now, you could just leave them. If you don't like them for now, and maybe you were hoping this was a softer area, I would recommend taking a second brush just so you're not constantly washing off this one. Let's take this medium round brush that I showed you at the start. You can very quickly and easily just grab a little bit of that light gray again. Oh, that didn't really work, sorry. Get that light gray again. I'm picking up grays that are too dark. That should be fine. There we go. And you can do the same crisscrossing motion to blend it in. It's kind of like you're just doing a reverse order. You're just kind of re-adding the gray second instead of first. So crisscrossing, or you can just kind of blend softly. I'm right by the edge of the moon, so that's why I'm adding these little brush strokes kind of going along the edge here. You can see how that's softened right up there, so just, again, quick little brush strokes back and forth, those little crisscross, crisscross, and that'll get rid of those textured, let's do it up here too. Those textured brush strokes, if you don't want them, if you want it softer. And you can just do this to cover up in general, like if you have a spot that you think is a little too bright for now, you can just cover up on top. You might see a little orange showing through, but it should be enough coverage that you're softening up, and that's the main goal here. Later, I have very much... Good. I'm really glad, Moon. It's nice to have a job that you're excited about. Yeah, some texture. Yeah, we'll be adding some texture on purpose a little later. Okay, so just kind of looking again at my original design, I feel like that's enough orange. I want to leave some space for the blue. And with that being said, there's no rule that says you can't put blue on top of orange if maybe you went a little wild with your orange. You can always wait for the orange to dry, and then we can add our blues wherever we like. But you can see I'm going to keep this spot open, maybe a couple little spots around here for some blues later on. All right, in the meantime, we can keep adding here. Relatively simple. We're just going to take the exact same brush again, and we're taking the same color. I'm not mixing more, I'm just grabbing more of what's here. And I'm going to wipe off again, wipe off on my paper towel, but I'm going to leave a little more on my brush this time. So I kind of just maybe tapped once or twice or wiped once or twice. You can see if you're comparing to the last brush you saw, this is a lot more coated with orange. There's still not big blobs of orange, but you can see a lot more pigment on there. And you'll see, yeah, when I stroke, a lot more comes off. So now what I'm doing is I'm doing the same technique with the same color and the same brush. Who is this following? Hush, welcome in. Thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. And I'm just adding more orange. The only difference in terms of like placement and amount is that I'm adding less. So I'm not going all in the same spots that I added our nice soft orange. I'm adding less of this orange. And I would say I'm adding it in smaller, just smaller sections in general. See how I added like a little group here, maybe a little group here. I'm just kind of separating a little more. And again, just overall adding less because it's darker, right? I want to make it look like these dark patches are within these lighter patches to give it more of a, yeah, blended look. Rather than big, like, holes in the moon, you know? Just again, looking at my reference here, it looks like I add a nice, eventually, a nice huge blotch here. So let's start to darken up this area in preparation for that nice big orange spot that we'll add later. Or we'll add to later. We're kind of adding it now, but we'll enhance it a little later with some more orange. Maybe a little bit. Oh, that's pretty bright. So yeah, if you ever go in and you feel like, oh, I added a little too much, I just quickly wiped my brush off a little more, and then I'm just going to spread this out. So I'm allowing my brush to pick up some of that paint. You can even wipe off again if you want, and then you can kind of move it around a little bit more. There we go. And I'll say again, if every little spot isn't blended to perfection, that's okay, because that texture looks nice. That's yeah, it's an opinion, but I personally love the texture that comes from, especially the end of the painting. So you're just kind of preparing for later by adding this texture. I've been doing this more often too. I did that by habit there, using my finger. Sometimes just instead of using a brush that has paint on it, I want a very fresh, fresh paintless surface. So my finger has been a go-to sometimes if I want to just either remove a little paint or blend it a little bit without adding more. It gives a little bit of a different look, but that was just pure habit doing that. So optional finger usage if you'd like to blend using your finger or kind of remove paint using your finger. That all works as well. It's like the kindergartners are onto something, you know? I think that's looking pretty solid for our not last layer, our second layer rather. We're going to be doing another layer after this. So if you feel like it's still not looking as bright and orange as you'd like it, we will be doing yet another layer. So don't worry. Just want to see if I have any other spots I want to add. Maybe like little ones up here. Okay, let's leave it there for a sec. I'll just, again, leave a little extra minute here in case anyone's catching up. At this point, our surface is probably getting pretty dry, and that's okay because whenever I go in with our darker colors, so our next step is going to be an even darker version of this nice rusty color, in case you haven't guessed. I actually like going on a drier surface. That way we can get more pigment. It'll stay a little darker rather than blending into the white paint below it. And as I keep saying, it'll allow us to do more of a dry texture on top. So just a different way to kind of add some, kind of a different way to blend almost. You can use dry brushing to make it appear like your paint is blending wet on wet, when in fact you're just using a dry surface and kind of lightly brushing the new paint on top. Oh, I left the stars for the end personally, Jamie. You can technically do stars whenever you like. Um, I would only do stars intentionally near the start if I was doing the flicking method, because that can be quite messy. But in this one, I didn't use any flicking. I just did the dotting technique, which is very controlled. So I'm just going to leave it for the end, I think. But yeah, technically you could do it whenever. If I said I was going to do it now, oopsie, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I left it for the end, so it's more of like a nice last addition. It's a nice easy step for the end too, honestly, just to finish it all off. Stars are pretty simple. But yeah, I guess I should point that out. Very good. If you're doing the flicking technique, it gets very messy. And the reason I would do that first is because you might find the flicks start to travel onto your moon. Unless you cover the moon, of course, you could kind of cover it with something so that the stars don't flick onto the moon's surface, right? But yeah, the last thing I would want is for you to concentrate so heavily on the moon and get all your details on, and then all of a sudden you flick stars on top, right? Hey Hush, welcome to the chat. I did, yeah. I found a copyright image of a moon online. There's tons of moon images online that are copyright free. And I switched the colors around a little bit. I went into Procreate and tried to like amp up some more rusty oranges and blues and whatnot. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you painted all Hush, but what I'm doing, if you haven't caught on, is I'm doing like a step-by-step tutorial. I do these sometimes on Twitch. I used to do them a lot more often. I have a bunch of them now on YouTube. Just if you're interested, they're all free to watch. I just like teaching people how to paint and encouraging them to try out painting if they haven't. Showing them that it can be done, you know? Just with a little step-by-step instruction. And I know a lot of people just like watching along too, so I'm happy you're here. Oh yeah, Jamie, yeah, sorry if I did. If I said I was doing stars first. Maybe I did. Accidentally. Stars are last, stars are last. Sorry about that. But yeah, you could do them whenever you want, technically. There's no rule that says you have to do them last. Other than the suggestions I was just providing. The flicking and all that. Oh yeah, okay. I only recently just started trying gouache paints. I feel like that's a little closer to watercolor than acrylic, which is what I'm using. I love the look of watercolor though. I just find it frustrating because I like to layer things on top, and I find watercolor. You can do that, of course, like to darken colors and such, but if I wanted to add a white something on top of a colored, surface, as I'm sure you know, that would be quite difficult. Yeah, I'm not as much about planning out my pieces. I like just putting stuff on and then putting more stuff on, and I feel like watercolor's a lot of thought out planning, which I appreciate, but not my style personally. I assume you've been enjoying watercolor if you're mentioning it. Again, I love the look of them. I've been trying to, as I experiment with my gouache paints, kind of use them a little bit like watercolor. Adding lots and lots of water to them, letting them flow a bit more. Nice in between that gouache. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next step with our rusty orange. So this is where we're going to see larger, more yeah, darker splotches of color. So if you see in my reference, like we have this big splotch of this really rusty red color right in the middle. We have some tinier splotches kind of dotted around. Even if you look in some of the blue areas, I kind of splotch some orange into the eventual blue areas. So I'll be doing that with the orange so that they're kind of there for when we add the blue. Yeah, so same idea. We're just using the same techniques. You can see I've switched my brush though. That is the one thing. I'm now using my medium round brush. And that's just because we're doing smaller areas. I don't want you to be caught up with, the width of this large brush as we're as we're adding smaller amounts of our rusty red. I need to mix a little more of my rusty red color, or rusty orange. So once again, if you need a reminder for how to mix this color, it was red, yellow, and a little bit of black. And I'll let you know, I think this time I'm going to add just a touch more black to mine because I'm comparing to my original and it looks like my rusty red is even rustier in the original. So I think adding a little more black paint will help with achieving the rustiness. Maximum rustiness. Hey Lumpy, welcome in. We're tootin' today. Tootin' the moon. Hello. How's your week been? Are you cleaning up stuff for the holidays, I hope, at this point? Hopefully it's not too chaotic. Yeah, I think this will be rustier. I added a little extra black, maybe even a little extra red as well, just to, again, really push it towards the red rust rather than maybe more of an orange. So using the medium round brush, I'm grabbing the paint. I am still wiping it off a little bit. I think it's always good just to be extra safe, right? You can always add more paint. You can always pile on more. It's a little hard to go backwards, right? So if anything, try with a little less to start, and then once you're comfortable, you can add more. But here I go. So this is using, again, that medium-sized brush, so the paint is a little more concentrated on the brush. That's why it's getting a little thicker looking. I did darken the color a bit, as I said, by using a little more black and red. And I am using, again, a little more paint on my brush too. That's why you're getting a little bit of a more distinct brush stroke as you go. I'm still using the same kind of quick back forth motion. You can see just kind of very quickly sticking it on here. Left, right, left, right. You can also kind of tap at this point too. I find that's a nice technique. Just tap, tap, tapping at the canvas. Gives another slightly different texture. And you can see I'm concentrating on doing this on the outside of the splotch that I just made. So I don't really need to worry about the middle here. We want to keep it nice and bold and beautiful. But I still want to kind of blend out the edges a bit so that you can see it's like a distinct, you know, shadow or distinct crater, whatever you want to think of it as. But it's not like harsh lines. It's not like this clean edge of the moon, right? It's still a little bit choppy. It's still a little bit textured and blended. So just, again, tapping around into the lighter orange areas, doing your back and forth strokes. Anything works here. And as a reminder, you won't really see much wet on wet blending, so you shouldn't see this color kind of blending into the color below it. It's more so resting on top softly. That's what this dry brushing does, is it softly rests this color on top. If I didn't properly describe dry brushing, it's when there's just a tiny amount of paint on your brush and it's kind of like scraping off of the canvas. And again, by adding the paint and then wiping it off on our paper towel, that's what's kind of giving this the dry brush look. And of course, working on a dry surface. That's why we weren't getting the same texture and same look with the other colors, because we were working on somewhat of a wet surface that was blending as we were adding. Yeah, I just started. Oh, you did? Oh, great. So it's all done. Fantastic. Good use of vacation time. Very smart to pile it up right at the end of the year. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're already relaxing. I was wondering if maybe you had a couple more days next week. Cool, cool. Alright, so that was a nice big area that I did, just again looking at my reference, trying to keep it similar. Let's try a smaller area just so you can see that. So same thing, I took a little, I even wiped it on my easel here. This is becoming a wiping spot for me. Looks like I have a couple little blotches up here, smaller blotches this time. So again, either tapping or doing my back and forth quick motions with my brush. That's about big enough. Let's do like a couple small guys up here. So you can see I'm also, again, kind of sticking to our light orange areas because they provide a nice little base for these blotches to rest on. They just look a little more incorporated, I find, if you're putting them in areas that have a little bit of the orange already. But yeah, these ones I'm kind of separating a bit so they're nice and small little splotches. You can even just like tap once and leave it alone if you dare. I find I always want to play with it a little, but even just like one little tap can be nice. Tap. Goodbye, you know, try your best to leave it alone. And I'm going to start working down here too. I'm going to kind of expand some of these areas out a little bit with some separated blotches. Nope, I have the blessing of my boss and my client. Oh, very good. Okay, good. I'm glad they're prioritizing your holiday because not everybody does that. I feel like a lot of places, it's the total opposite, Lumpy. They're like, it's grind time, you know? You guys are getting 2 weeks already, or 1 week, or whatever they're choosing to give. So they say you better work hard in all of December to make up for it. Yeah, very good. I'm sure that's very fulfilling for you too. That both the client and the boss are saying, no, you've put in some great work, you're good to go, goodbye. Shoo shoo. Enjoy your holidays or something, you know? I got 5 weeks. Oh, very good, very good. Oh, brave. I went out on Wednesday and I was hoping to snap a photo and it got too dark too quick. I just didn't time it right. It was all my fault. I'm sorry. I still hope to get out before I go back to Ontario. That is my one mission at least before leaving. As I keep referencing, I have other commissions to be completing as well before I leave, so I'm trying to get those prioritized too. But I want to get you those photos as well. I just need to make time to get to the proper spots to take the photos. That is the one thing. And yeah, finding the right weather for it. Yeah, Wednesday was good weather. I just unfortunately made it a bit late to the spot that I could have taken some photos from. So apologies. But I'll still be getting you something again before Thursday. Thursday is when I leave to go back. I'll make sure I'm looking at the weather over the next couple days so I'm not putting myself in a bind for the last few days that I'm here. I have other things to do, yeah, in the area that I'm planning on going, so I'll get a couple things done at once. I'm shocked by how, yeah, I'm shocked by how little references there are of Ray though. Online, like I'm almost always able to find a good online reference, like a good copyright-free image, but even non-copyright free ones, they're so rare of what you're looking for. Oddly enough. I had a lot of trouble. So yeah, definitely best that I get my own photo. Okay, these are almost there. I might grab a little more down here. I didn't, Marion, not yet. That's been such a long ongoing project. I've been thinking about that too. This is one of the things on my list for the next week. I have a lot on my plate that I'm trying to prioritize. There was some delay at one point, no longer, but at one point there were delays with getting me the paint. Like I started the sketch and then I had to wait like I would say upwards of months for the paint. And then once the paint got there, I feel like I went back home for a bit and then I wasn't going in as consistently. Anyway, I feel like a few things kind of piled up that I wasn't working on it as much as I should have been. So it's still sitting there like half completed. But I'm still hoping that if I can get the other things that I keep referencing done in the next little bit, I can maybe I want to just go in and do like a whole day of it, you know? That was the other thing. I was doing it, oops, like an hour each time. And I think it would be better if I just kind of hammered it all out, you know? But yeah, I haven't forgotten about it. They've been very kind about just letting me go at my own pace. And I guess that is because I'm volunteering to do it, right? This was just a volunteer opportunity that they gave me. And they've been very, very nice about just letting me go at my own pace and no pressure with it. So I've been allowing it to not be super top priority because I've had other things that have been taking priority for sure. When it'll be up? In the next week or so, Charlene. I do my best to get it up as soon as possible. I would guess within a week, though. Oh, no worries. Yeah, yeah. If you have to go, it's no worries at all. That's my plate after having pasta. It does look like it, doesn't it? I'm honored. It does look very, yeah, meaty sauce. It's not quite tomato sauce. It's like a nice meat sauce. With that, I'm going to stop there with my orange. So what I'm doing now is I'm leaving the rest for the dark blue, and then I'll let you know we have another step on top of that, which is adding some white. The white's going to help with re-separating some of these parts, so if you feel like anything's looking a little too bold, a little too blotchy, if you will, one of our last steps for the surface of the moon is taking some white and again dry brushing on top. So it'll allow for us to kind of break up some sections if we think they're a little too bold and big. And it also will give us a little bit of like, what's a good word? Like a direction to the moon. If you see, there's like a big white splotch in my reference there with some little like streaks coming out. It almost gives it kind of a rounded effect. So it'll kind of shape the moon a little nicer as well. Give it a little more like 3D in a way. Oh yeah, no worries, Charlene. You can take a nice break and watch for the YouTube video, or again here on Twitch. It'll be, you know, up until Twitch removes it in 2 months, but it'll be on YouTube forever. If you're subscribed to my YouTube, you will get a notification. Otherwise, I think I usually post in the event page when the YouTube is or the YouTube video is posted. Yep, same as always. Oops. Okay, so with that, as I just said, I think I'm going to be leaving that rusty orange now. As usual, you can always come back to certain steps if you find that you want to play with the rusty orange a little more, or maybe we add these kind of dark navy blue colors and you want to re-add some orange that gets covered. You can always do that. There's no rule that says you have to do the exact order I'm doing, but just for the sake of the tutorial, I'm saying I'm done with my orange and I'll move on to our nice navy blues. Before we do that though, because we want to start with the same steps as we did the orange, with the nice kind of soft blendy steps, I'm going to actually grab my large flat brush again, and I'm going to do a very quick little layer of light gray. And we do not need to add this everywhere. I'm just going to do my best to kind of keep the light gray contained in areas that aren't covering up the orange. Just kind of new areas where the blue is going to be added. So I'm back to my plate here. I'm mixing lots of white with a little bit of black. Again, using water on my brush as well to keep the paint a little thinner and easier to spread. And just very messy, I'm just going to add it. You can see in these little gaps here. Anywhere where I think I'm going to be adding larger amounts of this darker blue. If you cover a little orange, that's okay. Again, if anything, it'll help with the textures and stuff. Maybe I add some down here. So again, this is the light gray, just kind of splotching it on. See, again, I'm using my finger to blend a little just by habit. There we go. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's much difference. And that's the point. We don't want to change the look with this. We're just getting a nice wet, semi-wet background. There we go. Take care. Nice to see you. Yes, you too, Charlene. I'll see you soon enough, I'm sure. Got a little close to the edge there, so I'm going to blend out a little bit. Geo, thank you for the follow. Welcome in. We're doing a step-by-step acrylic painting tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the chat. All right, so once I've created that nice light gray surface again, I'm going to take that large flat brush, same thing, and I'm going to mix what I would call a navy blue. So I'm mixing on my plate blue, and again, that was phthalo blue for those wondering what kind of blue I use. You'll find different blues give different effects, of course. This blue is a very bright, almost like a turquoisey blue. And to the blue, I'm adding a tiny, tiny amount of black. That seems to be a theme here. Just like the tiniest corner on my brush, dipping into the black paint and mixing into blue. You'll see it kind of dulls the blue down a little bit. It almost makes it look like it's turning kind of like a, maybe leaning like a greeny purple in a way. It's odd. But yeah, it stays very dark is the point. And the black is just darkening it even more. And again, I would say it kind of mutes the color a bit rather than keeping it that very bright, bold blue that I was describing earlier. Hard to see on my brush, but you can see the brush is dark. That's a result of that nice navy. So, same idea. It's the same techniques. I'm still using the same brush. I'm wiping off on my paper towel a lot because especially blue is so, at least my blue is very pigmented, so I want to make sure there's the tiniest amount on my brush. Not a lot at all. And then same as last time, I'm just lightly brushing that on so we can get a nice soft layer of this blue to begin with. I think I might add even a little more black. I think it's looking pretty bright right now. I'm gonna add a little more black to deepen it up even further. Yeah, exactly, Bob Ross blue. Bob, I feel like uses a couple blues. I could be wrong. But he definitely uses phthalo a lot. Makes me happy when I hear him say phthalo blue. And that makes sense because a lot of his stuff is like he's doing, oh wow, that's very dark now. Let me wash that off my brush. So again, if you make that mistake where you put a little too much of a bold color to begin with, just wash off your brush. There's no extra paint, and then you can just use what you have on the canvas and move it around a bit more. There we go. Yeah, see how it looks almost like greener because of the black? It's really bizarre. And again, the blue I find so pigmented, so I might even wash my brush off again in order to blend out these little sections that I'm making here. I'm gonna do the thing where I add the paint first and then I'll blend out after. There's some there. Looks like I kind of border a little around the orange. And yeah, no rule that says you can't mix these two colors, especially because the orange is a little drier now. It's just kind of like you're putting the blue, you know, with some of the orange sections. You're not going to be actually mixing them together, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. I've added. Now I'm washing off the brush. And then I'm going to use a clean brush to kind of swipe along the edges, and you can see that softens them right up. Same thing, kind of those crisscross motions. Yeah, I feel like I hear Bob say Prussian blue sometimes. Excuse me, I still don't really know what Prussian blue is, but I'm sure it's nice. Yeah, Bob always does those like beautiful blue skies, right? Like very bright blue. And I find more so phthalo blue is just nice for mixing as well. Like phthalo blue mixed with red will give you like a really nice bright purple, for example. I've heard people say they struggle mixing things like purples and greens if they have the wrong kind of blue because maybe they're using a blue that's quite muted. And so when you're trying to make like a nice like grass green, for example, it might not come out as bright as a result. But phthalo blue will give you those bright, nice, vibrant results. Okay, I would say overall I add less blue than I do orange. But again, if you're liking the blue a lot, I would just keep adding until you're happy. Maybe I'll do a little more in here. Actually, I feel like I see some down here too. Again, really the only rule I'm kind of keeping in mind is just keeping that outside edge nice and clean. And even if you mess that up a little bit, you can always go back and add more white later. It's more so just planning ahead so you don't have to do that work later. Maybe I'll go a little up here too. It almost just helps with the glow to add this little bit of blue around, right? Because it creates more of an edge. You can do anything you want to. This is your world. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, listen to Bob when you don't know. When you're second guessing. He'll remind you about what's important to remember with painting. Like, even though the moon exists, we can make our own moon. There's lots of moons, right? This doesn't have to be the moon. Just a moon. Cute. All right, just because we're doing similar steps, I think I'll just roll right along here. I'm going to switch early here. I'm going to switch to my smaller brush a little earlier. I think last time I did 2 layers of my rusty orange with my large flat brush. This time I'm only going to do the 1, and then I'm going to switch to this medium round immediately. And I'm feeling like doing that because, again, my blue is very pigmented, so I want to keep it very under control with a smaller brush. And also because I feel like we're adding slightly less blue, so I'm just going to move to the smaller brush immediately as a result. Same thing, I'm adding that navy blue. I'm going to wipe off a good amount of it. And then I'm going to start... Oh, I wiped off too much. To the point where I was using a brush and just lifting the paint off of the canvas. I gotta grab a little more here. There we go. And same idea, I'm just gonna start kind of darkening up, I would say, like the centers of the blue areas, either by tapping or doing my little brush strokes. I think I'm just running out of paint in my pile too, that's more the issue. There we go. Oh, yeah, that was the issue. There we go. Wipe that off. And again, if you're looking to match my reference, I would say the blue gets quite dark. You can see how a lot of those blotches, there's not a whole lot of the soft blue remaining, just kind of right around the edges. So I'm really filling up most of those blotches with this new, more pigmented dark blue. Doing a lot of tapping, a lot of wiggling with my brush. That's why I liked this moon idea as a tube, because it is very loose. Like, there's not a lot of, other than actually making the moon itself, there's not a lot of, like, clean edges, precise lines. It's a lot of just, like, having fun with where the brush is going, slowly adding paint. And that's why I like the steps of this one, too. I feel like if you're just going nice and slow with each color, it's really hard to go wrong. Unless, of course, like, yeah, you accidentally add too much and then you're like, oh no! But, again, that's all very fixable. If you're really going slow with, yeah, the amount of paint you use. It's just a matter of taking your time and stacking those colors on top of each other. Slowly but surely. Look at that. And I kind of pointed out again, I'll say it again though, if you want to not necessarily blend the orange and blue, but just kind of collide them together, that's fine, especially this big orange blotch here. In my original, I really liked the idea of adding little bits of dark blue kind of around the edges, just certain edges, not like bordering the whole thing, but making it look like the two colors are kind of colliding. And again, safe to do because the orange is probably very, very dry at this point. Otherwise, orange and blue, I would say you generally want to avoid mixing them together because they'll make a they'll make brown. They'll make brown. So unless you want some brown in your moon, I would stay away from mixing wet on wet. But again, because the orange is dry, we don't need to worry. Okay, like tiny bit up here. This is where I'm really dry brushing when I want just a soft amount. So again, dry brushing is using just the tiniest amount of paint on your brush. It's like the remainder of the paint after I've gone around the moon here. I haven't reapplied any. I'm just kind of rubbing the bristles so that little bits come off. It's like they kind of, the paint just clings to almost the surface of the canvas. You might see some of the kind of dots, you know, of the canvas, that, again, texture. Which I know some people like to avoid, but again, for this moon one, I feel like it's wanted. I want to see that little dotty texture. Makes it look like there's... makes it look like we're like zoomed right in on the moon. We can see all the nice surface, you know? All the little rocky bits. All the dust. Whatever else is on the moon. All the cheese. Cool, right? Okay, and I'm going to do that one more time. Whenever you're happy with that second layer, I'm just doing the same thing again. Just using a little more paint, a little more pressure even. Just try and mix a little more. And just like the red, if you want to use your last step to make your dark blue even darker, like by adding just a tiny extra amount of black, go for it if you want to experiment with a little bit of a different shade of this dark blue. Because this is still pretty blue here, even compared to my original. There we go, this'll do it. So yeah, just maybe a tiny extra bit of black there. And just like the last layer of the rusty orange, I'm going to make sure I'm adding small amounts of this. I don't want this to go crazy everywhere. I want to keep a lot of the other shades of the navy blue. So I'm just adding it in small little splotches, probably within the splotches that I've already made, for the most part. Looks like there's some right here. Again, that's not a hard rule too. You can even just leave some splotches alone. They don't all have to be touched up with each and every layer. I guess at this point is usually when I recommend you take a little moment just to check out the whole piece. Like lean back in your chair if you can, or pull out your phone to take a quick photo. That way you can see the design kind of all together rather than so close up while you're looking and concentrating while painting. It's good to get a nice different perspective here and there. Not a whole lot of blue. I don't want to overdo it. I feel like orange is a little more of the star here. In fact, I could even go in and add more orange, I think. I'll try and refrain just for timing reasons. I don't want to be fiddling with this painting forever. But if you guys need to add more, feel free. Alright, I'm going to crash now too. Have fun with painting. Yay! Yeah, I'll do my best to put this on YouTube as quickly as possible, because as you saw, a few people were asking, so I'll do my best. I hope the migraine gets much better, Gray. You can enjoy your weekend. Thanks for being here! Bye! Scatter. She runs. Scatter is so funny. You're not just leaving, you're scattering. You're out! Goodbye! Talk soon! Chaos on Sunday! Still gotta prepare for Sunday. Wow! There's not a whole lot to prepare, but I just want to have things in order. I still need to have a plan. As much as we think chat controls painting is just straight chaos, there's a little bit of planning that's involved to keep it at least rolling at a decent pace. Maybe I'll get a fun channel point. We always do channel point redeems for chat controls painting, but maybe I'll get something that puts up an alert or something. Thank you, Frey. I've almost finished. Dang. Improvements. Yeah, I hope you're all gathering ideas too. Lots of thought that goes into chat controls painting. One more tip you can see here, I'm kind of adding a little extra blues even though I said I'm good. If you go right into the dark orange and softly brush the blue on, it almost just makes the orange appear a little darker. So it's not necessarily, you know, adding blue right on top of the orange. It's almost like you're adding little shadows, which is nice. Just gives a little more dimension to any larger orange areas that might be just kind of plain looking. I think that's fine. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Yeah, I'll give a quick minute or two if you're still playing with the oranges and blues. And then I have one more moon step for you, as promised. We're going to put some white on top just to kind of split things up a little bit more, add a little bit of shape to the moon. I know it looks very shapely, but we'll shape it even further. And then we got some stars to add. Just looking down at the original here. It's interesting to look at it on screen versus in person. Again, I always try and do it similar as possible to the old one, but there's always slight differences. I do my best. Let me flip my plate over here. Get a nice clean spot. Yeah, this will be chat controls painting number 4. Can you believe it? I should hang them all up somewhere. It's just hard to find a fun spot to hang them all that you could all see them. Like, I have space, it is they might just be somewhere in my apartment without you guys seeing them. It's this Sunday, Marion. Yeah, usually usually I do video games on Sunday, but this Sunday we're doing no video games. So we're doing only chat controls painting. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. So it starts at the same time I would usually start, so 11 a.m. PST. It'll go for the majority of my afternoon. As usual, I gotta dip out maybe around 4:30-ish my time. So it's a good 5+ hours of chat controlling painting. And then what I plan to do is on Tuesday we'll continue it if we still have a request queue. Usually I still have a request queue for at least another stream. So assuming we have people show up and request things, I think Tuesday I will be painting as well. And Tuesday will be same time as usual, 2 p.m. Mm-hmm. A blind run? Do you mean like I'm not looking? Oh no. This is like when you all tell me what to paint and I paint it. None of the guessing games, none of that. I want to do that again though, Luke. I was thinking about when we did remember Dudo? I still have that shirt. I want to do another one of those where chat knows what they're trying to make me paint and I have no idea. I think those are really fun. Maybe in the new year we can set up some fun dates for that kind of stuff. There's too much going on right now though for me to do it in the next week. Oh yeah? Okay, Bray. Ooh. I'm excited but nervous now. The ideal concept. All right. And hey, I'm glad we're doing this once the TOS has changed. Let me just say that. I know you all would be great, but I'm constantly thinking about people new coming into the stream and saying, oh, I can control what you paint. Wouldn't that have been a joy to do with the new TOS, huh? Whatever. I make the rules. I can always say no, of course. But as you all know, I don't usually say no for requests for chat controls. I try and make it happen as close as possible to the request. All right, so on to the next step for the moon here. I wanted to wait not just because I was chatting, but because I want this to be relatively dry at this point. If there's small amounts that are a little sticky, you should be fine. But if you have any globs somehow, we haven't been really globbing paint, but if you decided to add some texture by blobbing on paint or there's just any wet spots, I would leave it for maybe another minute or two just to be sure. Because the next step is adding white paint and we don't want the white to be mixing as we add. We want it to be a nice clean layer on top. Mm-hmm. You want to add a bonk to the painting? A new emote? I should be taking emote ideas too, because I want to work on those. Although I feel like I have enough ideas. Anyway, I'll chat about that in a second. Okay, so yeah, my surface is dry, so I'm going to go ahead with my next step here. So I'm once again using the medium round brush, more so for the round tip, not necessarily the size. So if you have a larger round brush or a very small round brush, you can use those. Those are fine. You can see I'm dipping into the white, but I'm not going to keep this amount of white on here. You can see it's a nice big blob. I'm going to once again tap off on my paper towel so that there's not a lot left over. You can see the tip is still covered, but there's no big blob of paint this time. In fact, I might wipe a little more off. There we go. Okay. So if you look at my original, I kind of pointed out one particular spot up here. It's kind of like a spot of the moon. I don't know if that's a technical term or I feel like I see little spots in the moon though. When I look up into the sky and I can see a nice clear moon on a clear night, I see some little spots and I wouldn't call them like craters, you know, they're not like the big splotches I see, they're more spots, they're more oval-like. So I wanted to create a couple of those with the white. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I have just a tiny amount of white on my brush. After wiping it off on the paper towel, I'm going to make an oval just like this. Just swirling my brush round and round, pressing very lightly to begin, and then maybe using a little extra pressure, you can see, to get a little more white off. But again, you can see it's coming off very soft. It's kind of transparent. I put it right on top of some orange, and you can still see little bits of orange poking through. In addition to the spots, when I was looking at photos of moons online, I noticed the spots sometimes have kind of what looks like lines coming off them. The moon is really mysterious. I don't know. It looks like there's almost like, not grid lines, but kind of lines that help shape the moon. It makes it look a little more spherical. So I wanted to add those as well. So same thing, I added a little white to my brush. I wiped it off. And I'm just going to very lightly go out from the spot and do some little curved lines. I'm kind of following, if you start close to the edge of the moon, you're kind of following the curve of the moon. And otherwise, you're just kind of sprawling out and doing little curved. It's almost like you're making a firework. I'm trying my best to describe this. It's almost like you're making a little firework with little strings of light coming off that kind of come off in curves. They're all kind of coming out and then falling, you know? So what these curves will do is they kind of make the whole thing look a little more spherical rather than flat. I'm looking in the camera, you might not be able to see as well, so I'll try and make one a little more prominent so you can really see, but try and keep yours nice and soft. Oh yeah, you see that one? And I try not to do them all evenly spaced, of course. They're all just supposed to be a little sporadic. You can do some that are shorter, they end off a little quicker. You can do some that are longer, they kind of go around the moon like this. So yeah, that's given a little bit of shape. And also, again, covering up a little bit so it's not as, like, defined splotch-wise, color-wise. It does kind of look like a pizza. Yeah, we had pasta recommendation. It might be a little bit of a moldy pizza now. Be careful if you see the pizza like this. But yeah, pizza would go pretty hard right now, wouldn't it? Yeah, I'm thinking of tomato meat sauce here. I think pasta was good too. I'm just re-adding a little extra white close to the spot and close to the start of these little firework bits. I find it looks nice to kind of brighten up the spots here and then let these spots be a little more transparent. Just gonna look at my original again. Okay, and then, yeah, continuing that concept of these little lines, there was there were one or two lines that I just kind of added without a spot, you know? Again, just to keep with the spherical kind of shape, so just doing a nice curve, maybe coming down like that. Not too much, though. That's, you know, this is one of the tougher parts too much wise, right? I think I and others struggle with a too much gene where we just want to keep going and keep going. I'm trying to advise us to just do little bits, little bits. But again, what these will do is not just only add some shape to the moon, but I keep describing them as splitting up some of the splotches, right? So you can still see a defined splotch, but there's now this kind of transparent white here, maybe splitting it up a bit more, making it a little less like wham in your face, you know? A little more pulled back. Doesn't look like I had too many more. And even if it's just softly brushing, that helps as well. Doesn't need to be a defined like line or curve. It could just be kind of brushing a little bit here and there, making it look like it's kind of faded in a way. Oh yeah, I saw Luke. I would have talked a lot more about it if it was a regular stream. I'm aware. Funniest part of their statement was that they didn't see it coming either. We could have never guessed. We would have never guessed what would have happened with the new rules we put in place. Uh-oh, ads in 3 minutes. Okay, I'll do this step, and then that way anyone on Twitch watching, it'll just be me painting during the ad. It won't be teaching. Alright, so I have one more step with the white, and yeah, I can do this for a few minutes just playing around. I'm using the same idea that I only want to be using a small amount of white on my brush, maybe a little more than last time, so just wiping off a little of the white paint from your medium round brush. And if you feel like you want to add more just lightness to your moon, you can simply add like white areas, white splotches if you will. We've been calling like the rusty orange spaces and the blue spaces splotches. You can add white splotches too. So for example, I just want maybe a little more lightness up here. I'm just going to lightly either tap or even circle my brush a little bit or do those little back forth brush strokes just to add a little bit of lightness. Just adds a little more of an interesting like highlight to your moon, I guess, rather than these very not muted colors, but you can see there's no white spots anywhere except for the outside. So just to get a little bit of some highlights in here. I'm again using tiny amounts of white on my brush, either tapping, swirling, crisscrossing. You can see it just adds even more texture. You can do this in empty spaces. You can do this moving into orange or blue spaces, as I keep describing, to split them up a bit. I think that's a kind of a cool technique like that. And while not going overboard, I find the more you add of this, the better. Again, we don't want to cover the whole thing and therefore like wreck all the progress that we made, but you can see just little amounts here and there. I would just concentrate on choosing one small area, adding a little. If you feel like more is needed, go to another area, add a little bit. And yeah, I encourage you to try and put this either on top of the blues or oranges and see how that looks. Okay. So I see on Twitch our ads are going to begin. If anyone is painting along on Twitch, rest assured if you're getting hit with an ad in the next 30 seconds, I'm not going to be instructing anything. I'm simply painting and chatting. I'm doing the same white splotchy step with nothing new. Okay, let me throw an alert in chat. There you go. Ta-da! Yeah, I don't have much to say about it, about that TOS stuff. I said my pieces. My opinions are clear. I just hope it's more, yeah, overall, like, regardless of what the rules were and what they are now, I think it's just sad that these things are so quickly put into place and then people get punished. That was the biggest thing. People were getting punished while seemingly following the rules that were put in place. And it's like, it seems like this company is making decisions in real time, you know? I guess that's what happens sometimes, but not very well thought through is all. Again, I feel like you could have pulled anybody who regularly streams already in the art section, art category. They would have told you exactly what was wrong with that decision. They would have been like, careful, here's exactly what's about to happen. And Twitch was saying that they were clueless that like AI would start to be involved and yeah, all of that lovely stuff. So not to say we're super smart, but we're kind of super smart. we kind of know about the platform that we've been streaming on for years, you know? So from that aspect, it's just too bad. And that, you know, that's not a hidden secret. They've done a lot of that. Putting things in place, rolling it back immediately. It just shows that how disorganized they are, unfortunately. To me. Now that you made it shiny, it looks kind of marble. Yeah, it just adds like a different... You get it. It's hard for me to describe in words as I'm teaching, but it just adds a little something, you know? Like marble. I love that. Like a nice big marble ball, yeah. Like a playing marble, but also like a nice marble surface. This is what I mean. I feel like you really could go crazy with the white and it keeps getting better. Because if you think about it, it just makes everything look more blended, more textured. You're getting lots of dimension because you're adding another layer on top of all the colors as well, while still allowing them to show through. But again, to each their own. It just looks a little clean without the white, you know? It looks a little too, like, the splotches are there, that's it. Let's add something different. Why does the image on the right look more sharp than the two? I don't know. I hope it's not my focus being out of focus. It could be, though. Shall I try and adjust? I turned off autofocus, so it's all manual now. I don't know, I feel like I just unfocused and then focused again. I don't know, but my hair looks pretty focused. It's hard to tell. Maybe just because it's a very high quality image too, Luke, I'm not sure. Who knows? I think would it make sense that the photo is sharper just in general than live video, maybe? Maybe. I should, maybe in the new year I'll make a point of making sure all my camera settings are good again. Not like I change them a whole lot, but sometimes I use one of these two cameras to take photos of my paintings when I'm putting them online, you know? And I may have played with some specific settings. Need to watch the Harris Heller video again and see what all the settings he uses for his camera are. Another fix my stream, perhaps? No, I'll do that on my own. I know what I'm doing there. I just gotta look up the proper info, you know? I've always thought that this one acts weirder than this one, though. They're the same camera. I think they have the same settings, but I swear that my face looks so much sharper and better than if I were to look here. I won't worry about it now, but yeah, that'll be on the list somewhere. Never-ending list of things. Okay, I think that's enough white for me. Again, you can go as much as you want with this. You can dot even more within, you know, certain sections if you want, but the effect is there. The idea is there. Just a final extra layer on the surface to add some highlights, to split up some sections of color, add some texture. As was described, it looks like marble. Very nice. So for this painting, there's only one more step at this point. Just gotta add some stars. What's a moon without stars? Yeah, for the longest time I actually had this design like done without stars, and it's because I just kept forgetting. I knew I wanted to add stars as per chat's suggestion. And I just kept forgetting. And it looks fine this way, but it looks a little empty, doesn't it? You know? Looks a little like it's just floating out there. Out in a just black hole surface, no other light. So let's get some stars on here. So this is where we're going to use this tiny brush. If you haven't used it already, as I've been instructing, I haven't used the tiny brush personally, but no harm in using it for anything inside the moon if you want to add tiny little details or tiny splotches of color. But for me, I'm bringing it out now to do the stars. So the stars, of course, just plain white paint, no mixing required. I am using a little bit of water. I find I like to water down my white paint a little bit. I think it's just a little easier to use when it's a little watered down for the stars. Okay, so I've, for once, covered the whole, all the bristles in white. No dry brushing here. We want a nice thick coat of white on our brush. And very simple, I'm just literally dotting them on, so I'm just going to press the tip of the brush, remove it, and that's a star. And then we're going to do that a bunch of times. You're eepy, going to bed. No worries, Luke. Have a very good sleep. See you Sunday, maybe. Yeah, have a good sleep and have a good weekend or couple days or however long it is till we see you next. Goodbye! So yeah, if you have a nice brush tip, and again, if you're watering down the paint, I find it prolongs the use of it, so you can really tap on not just one, not just two, but a bunch of little stars, because the paint's a little thinner, rather than thick blobs. If you keep it nice and thick, it might kind of blob off on one or two little taps, and then you gotta reload, which is fine, but it involves much more back, forth, back, forth. The harder you press, the larger the star will be. The lighter you press, the smaller it'll be. I try and do a little bit of everything so I get some very tiny, twinkly little stars like you see me adding now. Tiny, tiny. And then I like to mix in some nice big boys too. Maybe. Yeah, some twinkles. Yeah, and I always say at this stage, if you want to, you know, be extra playful in your sky, you could do some little constellations or little secret messages, whatever you think. Add some fun things to the space sky as well, you know, get creative. Maybe you want a little UFO up there. Maybe you want like indications of planets, other moons perhaps. I almost said other planets, but this is not a planet, it's a moon. Yeah. You know, use some oranges, you can make Mars and stuff like that. Oh, that's going to be a very big star. Okay, that's a planet, you know? That got a little big, it turned into a nice big planet. And yeah, as I was describing earlier, this is how I'm adding the stars for this one, just so it's a little more controlled. Sometimes when I do more like galactic-centered paintings, I will do the flick method where I load up the tip of my brush with very watered down white paint, like even more watered down than what I'm using now. And then you just take your index finger and flick at the canvas, and that creates big, like, clusters of stars, very tiny little ones all at once. So if you're looking for more of that, like, galactic effect or just a very filled sky without spending so much time dotting, you can, of course, do that. I would once again, though, recommend you cover your moon, because no doubt some of that spray will spray onto the moon, and it doesn't make sense to see stars on top of the moon. So just be a little careful of that. Otherwise, go crazy. One other minor thing I'm pointing out here, I'm staying a little further away from the very edge of the moon. I don't think it's really a rule, but in my brain, I would think logic-wise, because the stars are producing light, you're going to see less of them where it's a little lighter, aka close to the moon glow here. So if I'm adding any, they're very teeny tiny guys, just kind of very lightly coming through. Otherwise, I'm just, you can see, leaving a little bit of a gap. It's as if they're being drowned out by the light of the moon. So yeah, I don't know if that's a hard fact, but I think it makes sense. The light would kind of eat up the light of the stars a little bit. Again, they wouldn't fully disappear, but I think a tiny bit. And yeah, I could do this forever, adding too many stars, but I think this amount is good. Okay. Yay! Moon! That concludes Moon! I feel like this one, good too, because it makes a big, not a big impact, but it does. It looks, I think, pretty complicated considering how few steps there are. Of course, the steps take time, especially if you're newer to painting, you might want to take more time than I did on certain steps. But I feel like overall, like the steps and techniques used are pretty minor. So yeah, happy to do this one with you all. To finalize the painting, I will sign it, as I always recommend doing. It's just a good way to literally sign off from the painting, you know, if you're having trouble putting the paintbrush down. I find giving a little signature says it's done, don't touch it. Whoop, there we go. I use like a light gray just at the bottom there, so it's a little more hidden. And it kind of looks like a big star down there. Yeah. And that's the tube. So I'll say, as usual, my closing announcements to YouTube. I'm moving Twitch chat away for a moment so I'm not distracted. So I can say my goodbyes to YouTube. All right, YouTube, thank you for joining me for this toot. I hope you enjoyed it. As I was saying kind of throughout this tutorial here and just through conversation, I don't do these too much more often. If you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, I so appreciate it. I hope you enjoy all the toots I've posted. I'll continue toots into the new year, 2024, just a little less frequently than I have been doing them. And this year was pretty infrequent. So, you know, I guess we're kind of getting onto that pattern and trend anyway. But yeah, if you're interested in other things I'm doing other than tutorials, the reason that I've been doing less free tutorials is because I'm spending my time doing more art things. I've expanded my offerings for commissions, selling my art, things like that. I'm kind of concentrating more on growing personally, artistically, rather than teaching. So yeah, I appreciate everyone's support on that. If you want to see more of what I do, again, check me out on any social media. I'm erinbunpaints pretty much everywhere. I would say Instagram's a good place to look if you want to see the designs that I've been creating myself, just for personal enjoyment and for selling and printmaking and things like that. My website is available as well, erinbunpaints.com. It has my whole online shop there, so if you're looking to purchase any paintings, prints, and whatnot from me, you can look on there for what I have available. And then I've mentioned, of course, Twitch a few times during this toot. Twitch is where I live stream myself multiple times a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm usually streaming myself painting or doing some form of art. I've been doing both acrylic and gouache painting recently. That's kind of a new thing that I've been trying out for myself. Sometimes I bullet journal, sometimes I'm doing digital art, emote making, things like that. And then I stream on Sundays as well, and I do some gaming sometimes. So if you want to just see what I'm up to, chat with me, even if it's to ask a question about a toot I have or a paint struggle you've been having, feel free to check me out live on Twitch Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. If you want to share what you made today painting-wise, feel free to do so on, again, any of those social medias. Just tag me so I can see them, please. I'd love to see what you made. I always recommend mainly, though, go to Facebook if you want to share with others as well, because on Facebook is where I put the tutorial event. I make like an event page for each tutorial, so if you want to post your photo in the tutorial page, that way others who attended the tutorial can see as well, feel free to do that. Again, I'm erinbunpaints on Facebook as well, so easy to find. And I think that's all. Yeah, good ways to support me. Yeah, if you're looking to support me further from my free tutorials, checking out my shop is great. I used to shout out like tips and donos and stuff. That is always an option still, but yeah, just know there's other ways to support me other than giving me money, right? You're more than welcome to check out my art if you're inspired by my art and like what I make. That's a great way to support while also getting something pretty for you. So yeah, I would say of all of those spots, check out my website, most importantly. Yeah, otherwise, I guess I'll see you in the new year. I think this is my last YouTube video till the new year. So I'll see you then. Thanks for that last minute follow, Peachy. Thank you so much. And keep painting. Enjoy the rest of my toots. Enjoy painting. Enjoy the holidays. Enjoy the new year. Relaxing and all that stuff. And I'll see you again. Bye.